You a great way to keep your buns warm. Now, I know what you're thinking, but I'm talking about a revolutionary new product that will forever change the way you cook. You'll bake the most mouth-watering biscuits, cornbread, chicken, fish, perfect omelets, all in about half the time it usually takes. The Wonder Baker is American-made, has a non-stick, non-scratch surface, and is dishwasher safe. I've designed this pan to retain the heat, so you really can keep your buns warm, and all your food piping hot on your table for up to 45 minutes. Now, doesn't your family deserve that? I'll send you 75 of my favorite recipes, 2 quilted pot holders. I'll even include a package of my favorite cornbread mix. So what are you waiting for? Here's how they're ordered.
For rush delivery of your Wonder Baker, use your credit card and call 1-800-257-1333 or send $19.95 plus $4.50 shipping and handling to Wonder Baker, P.O. Box 8660, Atlanta, Georgia. Keeps food hot for up to 45 minutes. Call now 1-800-257-1333.
Headline News, I'm Bob Lozier. Investigators say that USS Vincennes Captain Will Rogers' family has received death threats in the months before his van was bombed. Rogers' van exploded yesterday in San Diego, and the FBI is investigating whether the bombing was in retaliation for Rogers' mistaken order to shoot down an Iranian jetliner over the Persian Gulf last July. Taylor Henry reports.
The charred shell of the Rogers family van remains sealed off on the exact spot of Friday morning's explosion at a busy intersection in northwest San Diego. The wreckage preserved for FBI bomb experts who arrived with metal detectors, searching the street and curbsides for clues.
There are fragments, certainly you're aware of, that would lead one to believe this is a pipe bomb.
A pipe bomb, the FBI says, may have been planted by terrorists, possibly Iranians seeking revenge against USS Vincennes skipper Will Rogers for mistakenly ordering the downing of an Iranian civilian jetliner last July over the Persian Gulf, killing all 290 aboard. Captain Rogers and his wife Sharon, who was driving the van to work and escaped unhurt at the time of the blast, have been placed in protective custody of the Navy. Just 1 hour before the explosion, Captain Rogers himself had driven the van, safely going from their home to a donut shop and back. Some neighbors say Captain and Mrs. Rogers have never been quite the same since the Persian Gulf episode and the return of the Vincennes to San Diego last October.
They were pretty much worried because, ever since July, I'm out here washing my car. We're always out here. Me and my brothers are always out here. And we've noticed that they've been basically, of course, anybody would, kept more to themselves, a little bit more inside.
Shortly after last July's tragedy in the Persian Gulf, Mrs. Rogers reportedly received a phone call from someone speaking in a heavy accent, asking if she was the wife of the murderer, and she abruptly hung up on the caller. For anyone wanting revenge, the Rogers' home address and telephone number were conveniently available in last year's local phone directory. U.S. sailors upset over the apparent bombing are complaining of lax naval security.
Because security on this naval base is poor. Anybody can get on if they want to. And something like that could have been done anywhere, on base or off base.
There's crazy people all over the world. So this is just another crazy act by terrorists. That's basically it. That's what it boils down to.
FBI agents are offering the assurance their investigation will be thorough, but they admit they have no suspects. Taylor Henry, CNN, San Diego.
It looks like President Bush has picked a winner. Congressman Dick Cheney was nominated yesterday as Secretary of Defense, replacing John Tower, whose nomination was rejected by the Senate. So far, the word in Washington is that Cheney will have no trouble being confirmed. He was President Ford's chief of staff and has served on the House Intelligence Committee. Speaking on CNN's Newsmaker Saturday, Democratic Senator Alan Cranston said Cheney has his vote.
He doesn't know everything. He doesn't know as much as John Tower knew, but that may be well a strength. You don't necessarily do well if you think you know all the answers when you are confronted with the titanic issues and problems and decisions that the Secretary of Defense will face.
A vote on Cheney's confirmation is not expected for at least a week. Democratic leaders are searching for the key to get back into the White House, but they wonder if the locks have been changed. Democrats have failed to win the presidential election in 5 of the last 6 contests, and at a leadership conference in Philadelphia today, party leaders admitted they must win back middle-class and working voters. Democratic Chairman Ron Brown says the party must succeed in other areas besides the East.
Without question, we have our work cut out for us. We need to chart a roadmap to the presidency, a roadmap that gives new emphasis to the South and to the West.
But Brown's goal may be difficult to achieve. Even some elected Democrats in the South are turning Republican. Larry Woods reports.
When they speak of a need to stem the tide in Alabama, that's generally the ambition of a visiting football team on a given Saturday afternoon. Now that phrase is taking on new meaning in the political arena, where some lifelong Democrats of all ages are defecting to the Republican Party. 5 months ago, handsome John Rice was a Democrat in the Alabama legislature. Now he's a Republican and candidate for Congress in an upcoming special election.
My party switch in October had nothing to do with me getting lined up to run as the 3rd District Congressman. It was just luck.
Well, maybe it was. But luck had nothing to do with 4 other Alabama legislators who also recently bolted to the grand old party, with others expected to soon follow. And the Republican National Committee says since 1984, a total of 25 state office holders in Florida, Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas have renounced their Democratic ancestry. Some political strategists and party workers in Alabama, for example, are offering reasons for the switch.
I have been a Democrat all my life, basically. If you want to label me right now, I'm what you would call a renegade Democrat, in that I support the person and not the party.
I don't feel like my philosophy's changed about anything at all. I think the Democrats are now very liberal. The hardest thing that I had to do was to call my father and tell him that I'm supporting John Rice.
Observers say old-line Democrats and politicians in Alabama are becoming restless. In particular, they have not fully embraced Ron Brown, the new national chairman for the Democratic Party, and they complain blacks at the state level hold executive committee posts disproportionate to their voting strength. What they are probably looking for, suggest people like Sylvia McCord, is candidates willing to wear new labels, respond to shifting ideologies. And she's found her man.
In my heart, he's a Democrat. He's a conservative Democrat, even though he's under the label of a Republican. And in Alabama, you're labeled. You're a Democrat or you're a Republican.
I'm Larry Woods, CNN.
Near Lima, Peru, airport officials say the pilot of a small plane radioed that he was having mechanical problems shortly before he crashed. 10 people were killed in yesterday's fiery crash, including 8 American tourists who had chartered that plane. The plane slammed into a building and narrowly missed hitting crowded classrooms on a college campus. Officials say dense fog in the area may have compounded the pilot's problems. Survivors of an Air Ontario jetliner crash said today that the plane didn't sound normal and seemed to shudder shortly after becoming airborne. The Fokker 28 clipped several treetops, crashed and burst into flames just after takeoff from Dryden, Ontario yesterday. Officials don't know what caused the crash, although there was a snowstorm at the time. 45 of the 69 people on board survived the crash, although some don't see how they did.
I've taken off in many airplanes, and I could tell that this airplane was not leaving the ground as fast as it should, and we were approaching the end of the runway. And I just believe very strongly that it wasn't going to make it.
A government-appointed commission in South Africa is calling for an end to apartheid and voting rights for the country's 28 million blacks. A report by the South African Law Commission also calls for a new constitution that includes a universal Bill of Rights. Yesterday, South Africa's largest and most influential church declared apartheid a sin. Leaders of the white Dutch Reformed Church say apartheid cannot be accepted on Christian ethical grounds. The church counts among its members President P.W. Botha and most of his cabinet. After 4 days of meetings with Pope John Paul II, U.S. Roman Catholic bishops say that they're doubtful that the Pope can change the American church. The Pope called the 35 leaders together to encourage them to assert church teachings. He charges that American society promotes secular trends like divorce and sexual promiscuity. The Vatican says the meetings were a great step forward. The Space Shuttle Discovery's countdown is running smoothly and back on schedule after a 7-hour delay. High winds forced a slowdown and some final maintenance and testing on the orbiter yesterday. Discovery's 5-man crew is set to deploy a $100 million communication satellite during its 5-day mission. NASA says there's no reason to believe that Monday morning's launch won't go as scheduled.
Vehicle is in good shape. We have no significant hardware issues that we're working. We're running a little bit behind in our countdown because of all the wind problems that we had yesterday trying to get closed out on the pad, but we have built in holes that allow us to accommodate some of that kind of slippage. So we're essentially seeing no problems at this time with achieving a launch on Monday morning.
Eastern Airlines says hundreds of its pilots are coming back to work, giving up their sympathy strike for machinists. But the pilots union says that simply isn't true. Machinists are staying on the picket lines in Miami, New York, and Washington, and they say they're ready for the worst since the airline declared bankruptcy Thursday.
We've been preparing for it, and of course it has big effects. Financially, we're looking for other jobs, but we're going to stay striking and take part-time work until we can get it back up on our feet, and hopefully this will all be over soon.
About 1,000 people formed a 2-mile-long human chain at the airport in Buffalo, New York, in a gesture of labor unity. A union rally was also held in Chicago, where the Reverend Jesse Jackson showed up for about 10 minutes to lend support to the strikers. After a week of empty terminals, Eastern is again getting some support from passengers. Today, thousands of people lined up to take advantage of incredibly low fares on the Eastern shuttle. Christiane Amanpour was in the middle of the crunch at New York's LaGuardia Airport.
It was quite a scene at Eastern Air Shuttle terminals along the Northeast Corridor. In Washington, D.C., Boston, and New York, thousands of passengers started pouring through the doors shortly after dawn to take advantage of the cut-rate shuttle fares on offer all weekend. $12 one way, down from the regular $69.
I've never been to Washington, D.C. before, so I'm taking advantage of it. Plus, I can tell my kids this, so I only pay $12 for a flight.
Others were simply trying to rack up frequent flyer miles.
In fact, if the lines hadn't been so long, I was going to go to Washington and then turn around, come back, and go to Boston, because you get 1,000 miles in the frequent flyer program for each flight.
It was quite a change from the empty terminals of last week, and Eastern even laid on a band to welcome back its shuttle passengers. Eastern ticket agents had their hands full coping with demand, sending out planes just as fast as inbound flights could be turned around. Still, these bargain hunters had to wait 2 to 4 hours to get on board, even those who weren't quite sure where they were headed.
Do you know where you're going? No?
As the lines got longer inside, so did the line of picketers outside, strikers trying to persuade passengers not to be taken for a ride.
Don't let them buy you for $12.
But it was a losing battle. For most, the bottom line were the rock-bottom prices.
They make their choice to go on the picket line, and people make their choice to fly the planes or cross the picket line. I'm making my choice to take advantage of the $12 flight.
Which makes striking pilots bitter.
All they think about is their own pocketbook.
For Eastern management, which has been losing $4 million a day to the strike, this is a chance to strike back at the strikers.
In spite of them, we're running a first-class outfit here.
Whether this has any long-term benefit remains to be seen, as Eastern tries to lure back weekday passengers with more bargains. Beginning Monday, the one-way shuttle fare will be $49, down from $99. Christiane Amanpour, CNN, LaGuardia Airport.
Coming up on Headline News, California almond growers want you to go nuts. But first, a look at the weather.
In a world where it's difficult to distinguish one luxury car from another, one of them manages to set itself apart. The Range Rover. You'll undoubtedly be seeing these exceptional vehicles on the road. Or maybe not.
Hurry up, boy. Come on, Tyler.
When it's cold and rough outside,
Come on, Tyler.
Try something warm and creamy inside. Cream of wheat hot cereal or instant mix and eat. Their smooth texture always lets the taste come through.
Again?
Too warm.